Good morning, students. As we begin the Canterbury Tales, I just want to go over some background information to help you understand what's going on, especially in the prologue. It can be a little bit confusing, especially as we do it virtually. So the Canterbury Tales were written by Geoffrey Chaucer. Later this period, I'm going to give you some more in-depth details about Chaucer and his background. And if you are ever in England, in Canterbury, England, you'll see this cathedral, the Canterbury Cathedral. And this is the centerpiece for the Canterbury Tales. We're going to see that a group of individuals, we'll call them pilgrims, are traveling to Canterbury. And also later this period, we'll go over information on what makes this cathedral special. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, actually more than 1,000 years. Here's a picture of it from many, many years ago. And something happened, we'll talk about it shortly, that led people in England to frequently make pilgrimages to the Canterbury Cathedral. And that provides the backdrop for the Canterbury Tales. The prologue starts out, the speaker notices that one night, 29 individuals, all part of one group, come to the Tabard Inn in the Southwark section of London. And they're all going to take a pilgrimage from London to Canterbury, England, to the Canterbury Cathedral. And this speaker, upon noticing the 29 individuals, spends the prologue sharing information about each individual based on what he sees right away, basically judging them by how they're dressed, how they appear, and so forth. So he doesn't really know them too well. He just knows their occupation, again, how they're dressed, how they talk. And from that information, he makes inferences on their overall character, which can be pretty interesting. And as we get into the prologue, you're going to have 10 questions to answer. And I provided this link here for you guys to check out. These 10 questions can all be answered in the first 42 lines. Now, as we look at this prologue, the line by line, the part in bold is written in medieval English, and then you get the translated portion underneath. But the first 42 lines will give us a lot of the background information. You see on line 43, it begins to talk about a knight. He's one of the individuals traveling to Canterbury. And from line 43, bear with me here, all the way to line, I believe it's 715, we get information about the different pilgrims going on this trip. Do not worry, you're not going to have to do all of this on your own, but it's actually, a lot of it's kind of entertaining to hear what and how these individuals are being described. Once you get to line 715, we read, "Now have I told you truly briefly the rank, dress, number, and also the cause." The speaker's telling us, I've given you all the information I have about the 29 pilgrims. And from line 715 down to the end of the prologue, you get information regarding what the host of the Tabard Inn, decides he wants to do. He wants to create a contest where each of the pilgrims during this trip to Canterbury have to tell stories to entertain one another. And the host is going to come up with the criteria for judging these stories. And we'll talk about this as we discuss the prologue. So again, the prologue sets the backdrop for who's going to Canterbury, what's at stake, why each individual is telling a story on the way to Canterbury and also on the way back. They actually have to all tell 2 stories going to Canterbury, 2 coming back. And the speaker, the narrator, is giving us this information. The Canterbury Tales, written by Geoffrey Chaucer as a whole, are a collection of all these stories, these make-believe stories that these pilgrims are telling us on their way from the Southwark part of London on to Canterbury. And a lot of these stories are entertaining, so it can be confusing at first, but as we go through it, hopefully I'll make it a little more understandable. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. All right, so we're going to get started first talking about some in-depth information on Chaucer, and then talk about the Canterbury Cathedral, why that is the destination for all these individuals on their pilgrimage. And as always, let me know if you have any questions.